welcome to this very special episode of GUcast. We've left the studio here in Melbourne and come to 5D Clinics, which is a brand new facility that's just opening in the next couple of weeks. And it contains a Cyberknife radiation therapy device, the very first one of these over on the east coast of Melbourne. We're very grateful to our bronze partners, Icon Cancer Centre, who are opening this facility as a joint venture with 5D Clinics, who are already experienced at providing Cyberknife over in Perth in Western Australia. So, what is a Cyberknife? Why is it so much different to a standard radiation linear accelerator? What sort of clinical utility will it have for GU oncology patients in particular? What about the physics behind it? What about the radiation therapists who run these machines? Well, we're going to learn all about that in this special on-site edition of GUcast. Coming up in this episode, we'll be chatting with old friend of the podcast and stereotactic radiation guru, Professor Shankar Siva. Also, as this is really an extraordinary piece of physics and engineering, we're going to chat to Nigel Middlebrook, one of the physicists setting this system and getting it up and running. And also Gemma Waters, radiation therapist who already has a few years of experience using Cyberknife over in West Australia. And we also chat with Mark Middleton, Chief Executive of Icon Cancer Group here in Australia, to learn about the business side of making a Cyberknife work here in Australia. But before we do that, what exactly is Cyberknife? Here in this animation, you can see why they call it a robotic radiosurgery system. It sits on an extraordinary articulated arm, which gives it the ability to target tumours with sub-millimeter precision while also using real-time planning to ensure optimal accuracy. Because organs like the kidney and even the prostate can move by quite a few millimeters, conventional radiation fields have to allow for this and deliver some radiation doses to healthy surrounding tissues, always a concern for clinicians and patients. Apparently, Cyberknife reduces that requirement by delivering a so-called pencil beam of radiation with much more accuracy. This also means radiation can be delivered in shorter fractions, meaning much less visits for the patient. But that is something modern stereotactic radiation machines can already deliver. So why is Cyberknife different? Well, stay tuned and we'll find out more. So obviously when you put in a fancy machine like this, there's a fair bit of physics behind it. So I've tracked down Nigel Middlebrook, who's one of the physicists working here at the Cyberknife facility. Nigel, this is a cool bit of kit, isn't it?
It is. It's a fascinating blend of technology. So the robot, straight off a manufacturing line, and they've attached a linear accelerator to the head. Yeah. So we've got electrons that are being accelerated close to the speed of light, and it's pretty amazing. You just switch it on, and then it happens. And we're giving that high dose or high dose X-rays to patients to treat their tumours, all very precisely.
So you're a medical physicist. And how do you become a medical physicist? What do you do to get to that point of working on machines like this?
So Bachelor of Science, majoring in physics, and then a Master's in medical physics to specialise in this. And it's a fascinating industry because we've got the science, but we're not in labs. We're in a hospital setting. We're working with a great multidisciplinary team with the doctors, the nurses, the radiation therapists, and our clerical staff. And we're all working together to treat patients with cancer.
So this facility has not treated a patient yet. It's exciting. It's getting going. So, what have you been up to in recent times? Presumably it takes a fair bit of work to get this machine installed from a physics point of view and get it ready for use.
It does, yes. So the engineers were here initially. They did all the physical installation, and then we come on board and work with them to make sure it's all set up accurately and precisely. So when the doctors want to target a specific tumour, they know that they're giving the right dose to the right location for that patient. And every patient has an individual treatment plan. So we spend weeks validating as many combinations as we can to make sure all of that is accurate and it's all precise. And then ongoing for every patient that comes through, we're checking and testing each of their plans before they get onto treatment to make sure, again, we've ticked all those boxes. So what the doctor wants for that patient, for that individual patient is exactly what we're delivering.
So yeah, it's one thing getting it up and running, but then you have a continuous role because it is a fancy bit of kit, and so for every day this thing is working, you have to run a whole pile of quality control measures on it to make sure that it's exactly as the physics was intended.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So a standard set of daily checks, monthly and then annual, and the engineers will come in and do its service, and before we give that back to treat patients, we want to do all the checks again to make sure basically all the parts are put back together and it's doing what it should be doing.
You seem like you enjoy this job.
Very much so, yeah.
So my son has just started university doing a degree in mathematics and physics. Yep. He loves physics. When we went to Europe last year, we had to go to CERN to watch that big particle accelerator thingy on the Swiss border. So it's a great career going into physics for starters. You can go into more the industrial side of things, but healthcare offers a lot of opportunities, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And I think as the machinery we use, whether it's radiosurgery devices like this or proper surgical devices like we use in the operating theatre, there's a whole plethora of things that a really good science degree can take you into, isn't it?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And congratulations on your son for picking those disciplines. Like I said, we're away from the pure science, I suppose, because we're not in the lab and we're not sort of pure research at the university. But we're in a field where we come to work every day and we're contributing in a multidisciplinary setting to healthcare. So
good on you.
That gives you some, reward for coming.
So where we're standing here now, down that corridor is the beast itself. Mm-hmm. There's a sign here, David, watch out, says risk of radiation, and above us it says beam on and ready. I suppose that shines bright and right, does it?
Yes.
Bright and red. And over in here, this is sort of where the radiation therapists, we're going to be chatting to them later on as well. They're monitoring the plan and they can keep an eye on the patient here as well. All that CCTV, David, there is keeping an eye on the bunker. But there's this door here that one of the technicians was working on earlier on. What goes on in this room here?
Well, this is the behind the scenes. So just like the Wizard of Oz, when you pull back the curtain, you've got all the behind the scenes stuff. And
yeah.
I mean, we're talking a multi-million-dollar machine here. This is only the third in Australia.
Yeah, a bit loud in here, but we'll talk into the mics. Hopefully it hears.
So we've got all the power generation here. We've got chilled water. We've got...
Come on in, David.
Compressed air. We've got gas. We've got all the computer systems.
Yeah.
And we've got the robotics, so everything here just to keep the machine up and running, keep all the data secure and backed up, because if we are doing some tests or we're treating a patient and we lose power, we want to ensure that everything stops safely, but everything that we've done to that point is recorded, and so that's what we've got.
There's a big server rack for that?
Yeah, server racks, yeah.
And this one here, I understand this Linac air compressor is because the collimators move by air, or they're moved by air?
Yeah. So that helps get them into a precise position every time with that air compressor. Yeah. We've got chilled water because the machine can get quite hot, so the chilled water cycling through in a sort of closed loop system. We'll
cycling through the main machine, not this machine. Okay,
so that's
a water pump.
Yep.
Amazing. And then, you pointed over, this is the power generator. Press stop if it starts going berserk, I suppose. And these are X-ray generators.
X-ray generators, yeah.
Two X-ray generators.
Yep.
And so there's a couple of plates up in the roof. You can actually take X-rays during the procedure as well, and for planning.
So this is one of the advantages of this machine, is that continuous imaging during treatment to accurately move the machine to track the patient's tumor.
And this thing is the robot itself, the engine that drives the machine around the place.
So it's similar, well, pretty much identical to what you can find on some manufacturing lines.
Yeah, amazing. Noisy in here. Let's get out. Well, look, thanks so much for talking to us, and it is a fascinating insight. We never get to see this type of stuff, I suppose, from a clinical point of view. So it's been a great opportunity to come and have a look at this, a great facility before things get up and running. And nice to meet you, Nigel.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, Declan. And thank you very much for the chat.
No worries. So I'm here with Gemma Waters, who's a radiation therapist at 5D Clinics out in Perth, actually, Gemma, but you've come over to Melbourne for the evening. Good to see you here.
Yes, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so it's quite exciting. We've been pottering around this beautiful facility here, the first Cyberknife on the east coast of Australia. But you've had Cyberknife out on the west coast of Australia for many years.
We have. So Charles Gardner Hospital in Perth installed the first Cyberknife in 2014. Yeah. I was lucky enough to be involved in the inception of that machine over there. So probably have 11 years of experience on the Cyberknife now.
And finally, over here, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, who all fancy ourselves as being more advanced in the West, we're finally catching up with you in the West. But, you know, so it looks like an incredible bit of technology. For those of us even who are familiar with radiation technology advances, and we've seen stereotactic radiation come on, you know, modern linacs without the necessity for a Cyberknife. We spoke to Shankar Siva about this already on the podcast. But I want to ask you, as a radiation therapist, you know, what is it about this Cyberknife that is different to, you know, being a radiation therapist delivering other types of radiation?
Yeah, so I think with the Cyberknife, obviously, yeah, we've had quite a bit of experience with it, but in the public system, you know, you can treat patients much quicker. So we saw a lot of country patients, and, you know, being able to treat them in 5 days or over the course of a week and a half, as opposed to them having to stay in the city for, you know, 7 to 8 weeks to receive treatment.
So this, for, you know, for external viewers, is you might live 1,000 kilometres or 2,000 kilometres from the nearest radiation facility. So to be able to just commit a week or two down in the city compared to relocate for a few months. Yeah.
Yes, yep. It's amazing option for patients.
And technically, is it more challenging? I mean, here behind us, we're here in the, what's this area, the planning area?
It's called the control room.
The control room, yeah.
Yeah, so this is where we deliver the treatment, and this is one of the planning stations here as well.
Okay, so David, let's have a peek at this here. So on this screen here, this is a plan. This is not like patient confidential stuff, but you're going to talk us through a little bit about, you know, what all these coloured lines mean. You know, a lot of simple urologists like me watch the podcast. Pull back there, Dave. Gemma's going to drive this computer and explain what's going on.
Okay, so the coloured lines, they're basically the contours. So what we do from a planning perspective is contour all the organs at risk. This is a pelvic node plan. I'll just...
I can recognise the bladder. Is that the thing in yellow?
The yellow thing is the bladder. We also have bowel, rectum, the femoral heads, and yeah, so this little orange spot here, this is a pelvic node that would be treating, and you can see it quite close to the rectum. But the beauty of the Cyberknife is because we treat from so many different angles, we can paint the dose in the tumour, so we get a high dose in the area that we want to treat, and the dose can really fall off those organs at risk at like a rapid pace, so minimising the side effects for the patients, which is...
Does Cyberknife therefore mean you can probably treat kind of tricky nodes like this that are, you know, got lots of important organs around them and deliver a meaningful dose with not just a shorter burst, less fractions, but with more confidence you can deliver a meaningful dose? It does give you an edge compared to standard linear accelerators.
Oh, definitely. So yeah, you can really, you know, and our doctors with experience are really pushing the boundaries of, you know, the dose that they can go to. So when we started 11 years ago, you know, some doctors were quite tentative, but, you know, now we're really pushing the dose to get, you know, effective results. So it's
incredible. You know, for us in GU, this is like, you know, one of the biggest topics is all about super hypofractionation / SBRT for not just treating metastatic deposits, but primary treatment for prostate cancer, kidney cancer. You know, there was no such thing as radiotherapy for kidney cancer until SBRT came along, and Shankar and other colleagues around the world developed that. But it looks to me like having tools like this will completely change the accessibility, the ambition with which we can treat some of these tumours. But we need to have talented radiation therapists. Is it more difficult? I mean, do you have to do like a higher training, or, you know, for audience out there, because I'm sure this type of podcast will attract, you know, people who are interested in this from a radiation therapy point of view. So, you know, is it a big challenge trying to learn how to drive this safely?
I must say it's quite different to a conventional linear accelerator. All of the terminology, the principles behind the treatment, it's all quite different. So it does take quite a lot of experience and troubleshooting on the machine to get your confidence up. And because when the Cyberknife came to Sir Charles Gairdner Hospital as well, it was the only one in Australia. So you didn't really have anyone to pull experience from locally. So training and everything was all conducted overseas. Majority of our team now has, you know, had training from the Accuray trainers. We've done site visits overseas as well. So I think collectively in Perth we have, you know, a really solid background of the treatment, and confidence in what we're doing. So it's exciting because it's different, but I think it's also the way of the future in radiotherapy as well. So that's really exciting for us.
For teams here in Melbourne, of course, they don't have to travel overseas. They might have to get all the way out to Perth, or you might have to come over here. But yeah, great to collaborate. And I could hear that in the reception this evening. There's a strong collaboration. Everyone's excited about having Cyberknife. So thank you, Gemma.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I'm here in the Cyberknife bunker now with our good friend of the podcast, Professor Shankar Siva. Shankar, congratulations on the new baby, I suppose we should say.
Thank you, Declan. I'm looking very much forward to playing with this toy, so it should be an amazing piece of technology to utilise for our patients.
So look, we've had a little walk around this building here today, beautiful facility you've put together. It'll be wonderful for patients. We've been chatting to one of your physicists and one of the radiation therapists, so we know about the complexities behind it. But I wanted to chat to you more about the clinical aspects of Cyberknife and why you are excited to introduce one of these into Melbourne for the first time. So we've already heard a bit about the science side, but what is it from a clinical point of view? What does Cyberknife mean?
Yeah, as well you might ask, what is a Cyberknife? And you've got to wonder, why do us radiation oncologists use knives in our language?
Sounds a bit like surgery. Yeah.
Well, actually, surgeons came up with the original plan for the Gemma knife. It's kind of stuck ever since then. So the Cyberknife is a non-invasive robotic radiosurgery system. So it is allowing us to give very, very high doses of radiation, non-invasively and very precisely. So this type of system is not designed to be used as your workhorse. So in the standard radiotherapy department, we would have multiple different linear accelerators that are used to treat all of our patients. This type of radiosurgery system is not your patient that's going to receive conventional fractionated radiotherapy for 4+ weeks for the prostate, or for example, even a palliative treatment to try to control symptomatic pain. This is not the machine for that.
Okay.
This is a very specialised niche machine that's meant to design and deliver SABR or SBRT or radiosurgery type doses very accurately.
And I suppose we've got used to SBRT in recent years because as standard Linacs, if we can call them that, have evolved, and I suppose that's all about software, they have become capable of doing SBRT to some extent. But explain to us, why does Cyberknife still have some edge compared to like a really modern Linac with good software that can do metastasis-directed therapy, can do SBRT to some degree?
It's a good question. I think in general you have to be looking at technology as we see it now. We've just switched off our mobile phones. You can see the technology that's developed over 10 years in a mobile phone that's now in your pocket. They can now do AI. They can run your calendar. They can do all your calculations and your email. You can imagine that kind of a translation of medical technology into a device like this. Modern linear accelerators are great. They are very accurate and they're very low toxicity. But this is a niche system. This is like the Rolls-Royce of what you want to do for stereotactic type of radiation. The reasons why it has certain advantages is because the degrees of freedoms that it has. So this is a robotic system. It rotates around the patient stays in one position, and because of that, it has multiple tiny little beamlets that are delivered to deliver the radiation treatment. So with the conventional linear accelerator, we are pretty much bound in space and time by a 360-degree rotation around the patient. This has that same degree of coplanar access around the patient, but also comes in from different angles, from above, below, around the side, and all of these degrees of freedom gives us multiple points of space. You can deliver just a tiny little bit of dose, but when they sum in the middle, it's a huge amount of dose that can be delivered to the tumour, and sparing all of that surrounding normal tissue around it. So it's, as an elegant device for this specific purpose, it's custom fit.
It really is very impressive. We've been watching it whirring around the place, and some of the physics behind it has sounded amazing. We've heard some descriptions earlier on about that. But from a GU point of view, from a clinical utility point of view, for our type of audience interested in prostate cancer, kidney cancer, bladder cancer, other cancers, tell us a bit about, if you have a range of technologies in front of you, give us some examples of which GU patients you would preferentially put onto the Cyberknife.
It's really interesting, even from a kidney point of view, which I'm particularly interested in. When we did our first meta-analysis, maybe even about 10 years ago, looking at the data about which kind of cancers were treated or how they treated kidney cancer, Cyberknife was one of the predominant platforms. More than half the publications had Cyberknife in it. That was because at that stage there was a real advantage for tracking tumours. So Cyberknife can move with the breathing motion, and it can track the tumour when there is a marker inside the tumour. And so things that are in this upper abdominal belt are fantastic. So liver, adrenals, kidney, for example, these are perfect solutions for moving targets because in real time it tracks this. This is an advantage above any conventional linear accelerator or even an MRI linear accelerator, so MR-Linac. These have to switch the beams on and off where the position of the patient is and the tumour is in relation to that. Whereas the Cyberknife is a robot.
It stays on.
It turns on, it tracks the entire time, which is a supreme benefit in that kind of scenario. From a GU perspective, there's a couple of different scenarios where we might be quite interested in it. For example, intracranially, which is not that common in prostate cancer, but for kidney cancer, it's a common site of metastasis. And radiosurgery delivered with the Cyberknife platform is very, very much more accurate than what we can typically deliver, especially when we're treating multiple targets, when it's a conventional linear accelerator. With the conventional linear accelerator, we have a lot of intermediate dose wash. So these are lower doses and intermediate doses that are spilling out into the normal brain. Whereas with Cyberknife, because of the degrees of freedom, we really do limit this. It's very much in parallel to another technology that's also commonly considered for the brain, which is a Gamma knife. For a prostate point of view, which is more to your kind of language, there is actually good evidence for using stereotactic radiotherapy with a Cyberknife compared to conventional linear accelerators. Probably one of the good ones, one of the better data that we have out available is from the PACE-B study. So this is a randomised trial, as you may recall, of conventional radiotherapy versus stereotactic radiotherapy, of which 400 patients were subanalysed, of which about 40% of those 400, over 400, had Cyberknife compared to conventional linear accelerators. Overall, the toxicities are pretty low, actually, both with modern radiotherapy techniques, both from a genitourinary perspective and gastrointestinal perspective, the toxicities were overall pretty low. But Cyberknife had the lowest of the toxicities, and centres that were using a Cyberknife had less than half of the side effects that were recorded from a high-grade toxicity point of view compared to conventional linear accelerators. So when we're talking about intact prostate, this is a really great solution.
Wow, so you're about primary SBRT to the prostate. Can I go back to the kidneys for a second? Because sometimes and we've been, of course, increasingly using SBRT for primary renal cell carcinoma, thanks to great work you guys have done, IROC and all that sort of business. But when you're tracking, does it mean you put a fiducial in because the kidneys are moving all the time, or it's just tracking? There's the lower pole.
So that is a potential limitation. So we do need to put a fiducial in if we're going to use a Cyberknife in that kind of context. There are scenarios called X-site, for example, in the lungs, which is probably straying a bit out of GU space, but we do see that for oligometastasis from, for example, RCC or TCC to the lung. There is solutions that we don't need to insert a fiducial if you can visualise this on a plain imaging X-ray plate. So you might be able to notice behind us there are 2 X-ray plates in the roof as well. These can be used to actually image when we don't have a fiducial in the place. But for kidneys, because there's not really a great resolution of the image, you do need to put a fiducial in. And typically there's 2 ways of doing that. You either put it in the tumour or outside into
maybe
the
at the time of a biopsy, can you do that? Yeah.
And there are other areas as well. For example, we do a lot of metastasis-directed therapy, potentially in prostate cancer. A lot of these metastases are in bone, for example, and that's a perfect imaging area because we get great coplanar imaging from the roof with kilovoltage imaging, and we can be really accurate in delivering these treatments. So Cyberknife is exceptional at spinal stereotactic radiotherapy. It's really good for bony oligomets when you want a really, really tight distribution and trying to avoid dose to other organs around the place. So there are certain areas where I think it's a really elegant solution. Sometimes these moving targets, yes, you do need to put a fiducial in. I think that may be a limitation.
And then finally, on the prostate side of things, with oligometastatic disease recurrence, typically, where we are increasingly using SBRT to delay systemic therapies. Do you think and you're already doing that with standard Linacs, but do you think SBRT will mean there might be tumours that you're looking at on a PET scan to say, look, that looks like a tricky position, I'm not happy, I can get a safe, reasonable, acceptable and successful dose in, and that maybe if I had you on the Cyberknife that might work? Is that something realistic?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Cyberknife it's a platform that's designed for this. That's what its entire purpose is. So I think the degrees of difference from trying to say clinically, can I show you a randomised trial that's going to say an oligometastasis to bone or node will be better treated on a Cyberknife versus a conventional LINAC? No, I don't think we're going to get that randomised type of evidence. But from a dosimetric perspective and from a planning perspective, there are some clear advantages, and there are reasons why you would pick one over the other. And so, for example, if I needed to put a fiducial in an oligometastasis from a prostate cancer, I probably wouldn't do that if it's too far away. But if it's a nodal metastasis that's next to a bone that I can visualise really well, yeah, that's perfect. Let's use a Cyberknife. So there's going to be some technical aspects of way we pick which instrument. But generally, from a radiosurgery perspective, the Cyberknife is kind of like the peak alpha predator in the field.
And look, in wrapping it up, we've talked a lot in the podcast over the years about that. And I remember last year, or maybe earlier this year, discussing proton beam with you against others, when that randomized trial came out. And one of the key messages was, the quality of standard radiation now is so good with modern techniques, etc., software imaging. And I liked what you said at the start about this sort of technology fits in along with a suite of, very good linear accelerators. So I think that's what patients and clinicians can be assured about, referring to top centres that have this type of technology. And if you're being offered SBRT or standard treatment on a normal linear accelerator, great, that's because that's going to work great for you. And this is just a really good adjunct for those tricky cases.
Exactly. And vice versa. If you need a conventionally fractionated radiotherapy plan for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, this is not your machine. So this is specifically for radiosurgery, and we have its niche use.
Can I ask you finally about costs? These machines are quite expensive, I think, like surgical robots are, and sometimes it can be difficult to justify why this machine, we should invest in this rather than another one. Is there big differences, or is it going to be more costly to be planning, or the fact that you can deliver in shorter bursts, does it work out overall?
Yeah, so the Cyberknife is an expensive radiotherapy machine. It is more expensive from a conventional linear accelerator, probably in the order of 1.5 to sometimes 2 times as much, with the service delivery. That's from the machine side of things. If you talk about cost to society, cost to the patient, you've got to keep this in context. Like one radiotherapy course on a Cyberknife is still the equivalent of a handful of courses of pembrolizumab or immunotherapy. You might get 3 cycles of immunotherapy out of your 20 cycles that are coming up. So actually it's cost efficient when you consider the potential utilities for it, and comparing this to standard drug therapies, it's really a no-brainer.
Great. Well, look, it's great to have it here. Congratulations. And we look forward to having it up and running in a few weeks.
Thank you.
I'm here with Mark Middleton, who's the Chief Executive of the Icon Cancer Group here in Australia at the launch of this Cyberknife facility in Melbourne. Mark, well, congratulations on this joint venture between yourself and 5D Clinics. It's an extraordinary bit of kit, isn't it?
Yeah, no, thank you, Declan, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me. It's an amazing piece of technology, as you can see. Here in 2025, the first time there has been a Cyberknife on the eastern seaboard of Australia, here in Melbourne, and as you can see, incredible piece of technology, and we think it's a game changer here for radiation oncology.
So, you run a lot of big cancer centres, both radiation oncology and clinical oncology, chemotherapy and so on around Australia. You must get a lot of asks, because your clinicians are always asking for new gear, aren't they? And it does strike me that it's taken until 2025 for the first Cyberknife on the whole east coast of Australia, advanced cities like Melbourne, Sydney. So tell me, what sort of things you have to look at when clinicians are coming to say, we believe a Cyberknife will add value to our patients, and how can you justify the very significant cost of putting in this type of kit? How do you weigh all that up? You must get a lot of asks like this in your position.
I do. I get a lot of asks. So, we're very fortunate with oncologists, and indeed all of the allied health staff involved in oncology, is they want the latest and greatest technology. Now, this technology is incredibly expensive. So I think one thing that we've always done at Icon is listen to our clinicians and make very, very disciplined decisions about the technology that we provide. But the reality is, for Cyberknife in Melbourne, the ask was overwhelming. And then, of course, we've got to make sure that a business case stacks up. You're quite right, this is a very expensive piece of technology. And it's not just the machine, it's the infrastructure that goes around the machine. It's the highly trained and very, very experienced staff staff who come with it. It's an enormous undertaking in terms of investment. Now, for us at Icon, if we're going to continue to invest in technology like this that can help the community, then we need to make sure that we're sustainable, and every time we invest, we are able to keep investing. So you're right, there's a lot of asks. We listen. We can't do everything, but we've shown a capability of listening and over time implementing in a very disciplined way.
And for this venture, you're already a big group, Icon Cancer Group. We already work a lot with you here in Australia. But this is a joint venture with a company called 5D Clinics, and I think this is called 5D Clinics Australia. So, so this is a great example of how someone who has expertise in running a Cyberknife out in Western Australia can partner with a big group that has a kind of a national footprint. So this is a good model, working with people who are already, experienced in Cyberknife, and then you bring your experience, I presume, as a very big cancer group. It's a good partnership, I presume.
Yeah, no, it's a great partnership, and you've summed it up really, really well. We have a lot of depth and capability and a lot of resources. We're very good at building and establishing cancer centres. We also acknowledge what the things that we're not good at. We have never run a Cyberknife before. So the team in Perth at 5D, very established. They backed themselves a decade ago to have a Cyberknife in the private healthcare sector. They've done extremely well. They've helped a lot of people. We saw it as a great partnership. The depth and breadth and capability of Icon married with the intellectual property of 5D Clinics. So you're absolutely right. It's a great partnership. Healthcare is built on partnerships, as you know better than anyone. And so I think if we can continue to do this and have a meeting of the minds, if you will, on partnerships are also built on what does the partner bring to the table. And here we're equal partners because we bring an equal amount to the table, and that's why the partnership's so successful.
Wonderful. We wish you all the very best with it.
No, thanks, Declan.
Thank you.
Nice to talk to you.
So that's all we have time for on this very special episode of GU Cast here at the 5D Clinics Cyberknife facility in Melbourne. Thanks very much to our bronze partners, Icon Cancer Centre, who are joint venture supporters of this facility. The very first patients will be rolling through here in the next few weeks, and really, I think this is a big step forward for radiation oncology services here in Victoria, and we're really pleased to have covered it on GU Cast. We'll be back soon with another episode.